Hi kids, it's Mrs. Fravel. How are you? Good, me too, I'm fine. Okay, today we're going to talk about levels of organization within an ecosystem and its larger biomes and biosphere. Okay, so as a quick review, again, ecology is what we are studying now in Unit 2, Principles of Ecology, and that is the study of how living organisms, the biotic part of an ecosystem, interact with the abiotic or non-living parts of an area, right? Okay. Again, biotic parts or factors are all the living organisms. Remember, this is not just animals. It's also plants, algae, fungi, lichens, and bacteria and viruses. Okay. Abiotic is the non-living environment. This includes all of the geology, geography, the temperature, wind, molecular, inorganic molecular structures, right? As well as non-molecular stuff like the temperature. Okay. All right. There is a video right here that explains all of this again if you want to watch it from someone who is way more interesting than I am. So I will post a link to this video as well if it is helpful. Okay. Okay. So how do we organize and label the Earth, essentially? So ecology is divided into a hierarchical system where the Earth is divided up into these smaller bits, and also every individual organism is part of a series of larger and larger layers within their environment. Okay, so let's start with the big part, the biosphere. This is the whole planet. This is the life-supporting portions of the Earth, which essentially goes from the sea floor at 4,000 meters under the ocean up to the stratosphere, the top of the atmosphere. We find bacteria, we find living things all the way out there and all the way down there. Okay? This is called the highest level of organization, and it includes every living thing that we know of right now. The biosphere is separated into specific types of biomes, and they are different ecosystems. The term biome and ecosystem are sometimes used interchangeably, and that's mostly when we're talking about like large types of ecosystems. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of the way. And biomes are organized just conveniently because of the planet Earth's tilt and its distance from the sun and how it orbits the sun. These biomes appear on the planet in specific places according to their latitude, and latitude is the north to south positioning on the planet. So the very northern part of the planet, we consider that to be a polar or tundra ecosystem. That's also found down at the south in Antarctica. That's mostly a polar region. And then we get what's called the boreal forest. We also call that taiga. And these are all those vast evergreen forests that cover the northern hemisphere. They're very important. They're also called a temperate rainforest. Below that, just south of that, we get what's called a temperate deciduous forest. And those are the forests that are made of broadleaf trees. They drop their leaves every fall, grow them, they hibernate over the winter, and then the trees regrow their leaves in the spring. And then we have all of these other wonderful biomes as we move toward the equator. We have the desert zone. We are technically in the desert zone. We have grassland just outside of those. Grasslands are places like the African savannas. We also have a huge grassland in the American plains and covering much of South America, although this should also be considered that's rainforest. The yellow is rainforest. The darker yellow is the grasslands. Okay. Of course, rainforests very important as well on our planet for a lot of our carbon dioxide absorption. Okay. What is not included in this? Can you think of anything that's a pretty major biome that's not on here? Yeah, that would be the ocean biome, the marine biome. It's not included in here. I'm not sure why, but to learn all about the marine biome, you can take my marine biology class as long as you pass this class, okay? So again, biomes, big ecosystems. They are broken into smaller ecosystems. Okay. And technically an ecosystem, again, is a pretty loose definition, but it is considered to be a defined area if you're doing a study. And it's all of the populations and communities and abiotic factors and how they interact. Okay. I'm really in the way. Sorry. Communities are all of the living biotic parts of an ecosystem, okay? So the communities are the organisms that interact. So for example, if we take the African savanna, if we look at all of the plants in this picture, so I've got some water grasses here, some reeds. I've also got some terrestrial grasses here. I've got trees way in the background. Okay? Those are considered the plants. And then I also have some, some little groups of zebra, and I've got some wildebeest. I'm willing to bet there's some giraffe wandering around out there, and I'll bet there's some predators too, like lions and hyenas and jackals. So all of those together are the community within the ecosystem and how they interact as part of ecology. Okay? And then within that larger community, we break apart the community into its constituent populations. And a population is a group of organisms of one species that live in the same area at the same time, and they interbreed to produce fertile offspring. These guys compete with each other, possibly for resources. Okay, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So we have on the African savanna example, I've got a population of zebra. I also have a population of acacia trees. That's what these trees are. Don't forget plants, you guys. Plants are so important. I mean, I like animals. I focus on animals a lot, but remember, none of us would be here without plants, right? Okay, and then of course we have populations of predators as well. There are populations of lions on the savanna. And then the last level is the individual organisms themselves. So within that population of zebras, I have one zebra, I have one lion, I have one acacia tree. Okay, so these are a single organism within its population, and this is where we stop. Okay. All right, so again, within ecology, there are a few different separate areas that I need you to define. And you know what? Everything I'm talking about today, by the way, is in your vocabulary from last week. So you might want to go back and make sure that you have the correct definition on those. Okay, so let's define a couple of things. A habitat is a natural home or environment of an animal, plant, or other organism. That is the kind of ecosystem that an organism inhabits. Okay, it's pretty simple. A habitat could be something like a savanna, a type of grass, a type of forest. Okay, that's the habitat. And then niche, N-I-C-H-E, is what an organism does in its habitat, its role within its community. Okay, so populations and organisms have a niche and a habitat. Okay. Within that niche, within that community, individual organisms and their populations might compete with each other for a niche. There might be, for example, in a field of flowers, there might be several different populations of insects that eat the nectar from those flowers. So they're going to be competing with each other to get that nectar. And sometimes we get a situation called competitive exclusion. If one species or if one organism's population is better adapted to exploit that niche, if I've got some super tough butterflies that are out competing the bees for the nectar in those flowers, the bees might actually disappear. They'll either leave the environment locally, or they'll actually die and their population will go locally extinct We call that extirpation. If extirpation happens in enough specific areas, it can lead to species extinction, and that's when they disappear, okay? Okay. So again, habitat and niche. A niche is determined by the tolerance limitations for an organism. That's also called, and a limiting factor, okay? So organisms have these jobs that they do and they need certain things, right? Those certain things are called limiting factors. These are biotic or abiotic factors that will limit how many of an organism can be in an environment. It restricts the existence capacity in an area, okay? There are several different limiting factors, and these are all limited because there's only so much of them available in any given ecosystem or any given niche. Consequently, that amount limits the number of individuals that can survive on the niche if they need these things, right? So limiting factors include water, food, temperature, space, and mates. The availability of each and all of those things will limit the size of populations of a species in an area, and it can increase their competition with each other as well when we really start to get limited quantities of those, okay? Okay, any questions? Great. I am going to stop this video now. Your assignment is going to be an organizational levels activity. It's going to be a foldable. What I'd like you to do is please go find a blank sheet of paper and then click and watch the next video for a description of how to do your assignment, okay? Okay, see you in a minute.